The deeper they ventured, the more the world itself seemed to burn. Heat pressed down from every direction, thick and suffocating, as though the mountain were breathing fire. Even the air carried a faint crimson glow, warped by invisible waves of scorching power. This was no ordinary place. It was a domain where flames reigned supreme, and any careless intruder would be reduced to ash. Hidden beneath the mountain slept an existence born of fire and time, an ancient flame toad, a demon beast that had endured countless years feeding on molten lava and refining its body in the heart of the earth. Its lair was both a furnace and a grave, a place where cultivators either emerged with fortune beyond imagination or vanished without a trace. Han Li knew this well, yet for the sake of a single core, he had stepped into this blazing abyss, fully aware that once the beast awakened, retreat would no longer be an option. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Lu Weiying carefully examined the two mountains before them, yet found nothing out of the ordinary. Bewildered, he asked, "Is there something wrong with these two mountains?" Marquis Nanlong slowly replied, "From this point onward we must pass through one of these two mountains. The place where they converge is the nest of the ancient flame toad. However, the left side of the mountain range is inhabited by a group of soaring purple-lined scorpions. Though their numbers only reach the dozens, each one is extremely ferocious. If we disturb them, things will become exceedingly troublesome." Lu Weiying cried out in alarm. Soaring purple-lined scorpions, those terrifying insects that wiped out all the cultivators of the Ocean Mist sect in the state of Wangsui. At the mention of the name soaring purple-lined scorpions, Han Li's heart jolted. Marquis Nanlong let out a heavy sigh and said, "That's right. Those very insects. And what's more, this group is far more fearsome than the swarm that appeared in the state of Wangsui. They have lived for tens of thousands of years, and their bodies have completely turned black-purple." Lu Weiying's expression instantly changed. He glared at Marquis Nanlong and bluntly said, "Fellow Taoist Nanlong, surely you're not jesting. How could we possibly provoke purple-lined scorpions? If there were only 2 or 3, we might stand a chance if we acted carefully. But more than 10, wouldn't that be courting death?" Marquis Nanlong wore a helpless expression as he explained, "There is another path, but it is even more dangerous. That route is riddled with invisible spatial tiers. Since we cannot determine their locations, it is impossible for us to pass through safely. Compared to that, the purple-lined scorpions are actually the safer choice." Lu Weiying stood frozen for a long moment, utterly speechless. Naturally, compared to invisible spatial tiers, even purple-lined scorpions seemed preferable. Upon hearing mention of the spatial tiers, Han Li gazed into the distance, his eyes unfocused as his thoughts drifted. After a long silence, Han Li finally spoke with a bitter smile. "It seems Senior Cancun chose the path of spatial tiers. With his abilities, he should have been able to avoid them." Marquis Nanlong gave a rueful smile and nodded. "Brother Han is correct. Without Master Cancun's capabilities, there is no way we could safely traverse that route. In comparison, confronting the purple-lined scorpions is far less perilous." Lu Weiying vehemently shook his head. "That won't do. We absolutely cannot fight purple-lined scorpions. You may have only heard of the incident in the state of Wangsui, but I personally participated in their extermination as a representative of the Heaven Peak sect. Their terror far exceeds your imagination. Provoking all of them at once would be a death sentence." The old man's fear far exceeded Marquis Nanlong's expectations. He had originally believed that although difficult, the 3 of them could prevail. Now doubt crept onto his face. At that moment, Han Li frowned slightly as memories surfaced from the rankings of exotic insects. Soaring purple-lined scorpions ranked 14th among all exotic insects, nearly equal to the gold-devouring beetles. If not for the small number of eggs they laid and their naturally limited population, their ranking would likely surpass even the gold-devouring beetles. Though they lacked the beetles' terrifying ability to devour everything in existence, their defenses were equally formidable, impervious to ordinary magic treasures. Their speed was astonishing, and their venom lethally potent, factors that earned them their lofty position. Moreover, these particular scorpions had dwelled in Devilfall Valley for countless years, reaching the peak stage of maturity where their bodies turned black-purple. Clearly, Marquis Nanlong only understood a fraction of their true danger. By contrast, the old man had witnessed their might firsthand, and merely hearing their name made his complexion pale. As Marquis Nanlong's expression darkened, Han Li let out a cold chuckle inwardly. Nanlong had deliberately withheld mention of the purple-lined scorpions until they had reached this point, clearly not out of goodwill, but to prevent them from retreating. Having come this far, neither of them could bear to turn back empty-handed, nor easily abandon the path ahead. Han Li silently weighed the risks and rewards. Choosing the spatial tear route would require revealing his unique ability to perceive spatial distortions, his greatest trump card within Devilfall Valley. Unless absolutely necessary, he had no intention of exposing it. As Han Li pondered with his head lowered, Lu Weiying stood rigidly beside him, fear flickering in his eyes. Marquis Nanlong also stared toward the scorpion-infested mountains, hesitation etched across his face. For a long while the three stood in silence, uncertain whether to advance or retreat. At last Han Li's expression shifted. He lifted his head, a faint smile appearing on his lips. Though the other two seemed distracted, they immediately noticed his change. Marquis Nanlong turned toward him at once and asked eagerly, "What is it? Could it be? Brother Han has thought of a solution." Lu Weiying also looked over with anticipation. Han Li did not answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his storage pouch and withdrew a small green bottle. Calmly, he asked, "Have either of you heard of the 10 supreme poisons?" Lu Weiying stiffened. "The 10 supreme poisons? I've heard of them. It's said they are unimaginably toxic. Cultivators like us would perish instantly upon contact. Wei Wuya specialized in poison arts and wielded one of them, corpse venom. When others fight him, they dare not even approach lest they die without warning." Marquis Nanlong's gaze locked onto the bottle in Han Li's hand. "I've also heard that some of the 10 supreme poisons possess miraculous uses beyond killing. Could it be that fellow Taoist Han possesses one of them?" Han Li raised the bottle slightly. "There's no need for further speculation. This bottle contains one of the 10 supreme poisons, jaded of. It is refined from the saliva of a jade-beaked demon bird. Brother Han intends to—" A trace of joy surfaced on Lu Weiying's face. Han Li nodded. "Purple-lined scorpions may be extremely resilient, but if we use the poison to lure them away from the mountains, it will give us a chance to cross. How do we lure them?" Marquis Nanlong paused, then chuckled. "Ah, of course. Fellow Taoist is proficient in puppet techniques. Smearing the poison on a few puppets should be enough to draw them out." Han Li's expression remained calm, though inwardly he sighed. "He makes it sound so easy, pushing the entire task onto me with just a few words. His eternal flight Orioles would work just as well. Last time, several of my puppets were already destroyed fighting that giant python." Though slightly displeased, Han Li merely nodded. It was a minor issue, not worth causing discord. After all, they were only halfway to their goal, and the poison itself was one of Master Kang Kun's legacies. With his deep knowledge of medicinal substances, Han Li recognized the poison at once upon smelling it and quickly sealed it away. In hindsight, it was very likely that Master Kang Kun had deliberately left this poison behind to deal with purple-lined scorpions. Yet such meticulous planning felt oddly out of character for Master Kang Kun. Recalling the ruins and the mural of the 3-headed, 6-armed demon beast, Han Li sensed a deeper mystery. Since Marquis Nanlong claimed descent from Kang Kun, he likely knew more. Still, none of that concerned Han Li. All he desired was the ancient flame toad's core. Anything beyond that only invited unnecessary trouble. Having made up his mind, Han Li slapped his storage pouch. 5 streaks of light burst forth, materializing into enormous ape puppets. He retrieved several small jade bottles, placed a single drop of jaded of poison into each, and sealed them carefully before handing them to the puppets. Under Marquis Nanlong's guidance, Han Li directed the puppets to silently approach the left mountain peak. Once they had gone some distance, Han Li turned to the others and said, "Let's move as well. We mustn't stray too far. Once the scorpions are drawn out, we'll need to cross quickly or we'll miss our chance." Neither Marquis Nanlong nor Lu Weiying objected. They followed closely behind. Soon the 8 puppets reached the mountaintop while Han Li and the others concealed themselves several kilometers away. At that moment, the puppets crushed the jade bottles in their grasp with all their strength. Instantly, a putrid, nauseating stench spread across the mountain, and the 8 puppets shot off toward the opposite side of the range. Although Han Li's plan sounded reasonable, there was no guarantee that the poison would truly be effective. In truth, even Han Li himself was not entirely confident in it. After all, everything he knew about the 10 supreme poisons came solely from ancient records. He had never witnessed their power firsthand. Moments later, however, all doubts harbored by the 3 cultivators were completely swept away. When the gigantic 8 puppets had flown barely 100 meters, the once silent mountain suddenly erupted with a series of bizarre, piercing shrieks. The instant Han Li heard them, his expression changed drastically. The qi and blood within his body churned violently, his mind turning hazy as if struck by an unseen force. His body swayed in mid-air and he nearly fell from the sky. Alarmed, he hurriedly circulated all the spiritual qi within his body, forcibly stabilizing himself. He then turned to look at his companions with his bright-side eyes. They were in no better condition. Both Marquis Nanlong and Lu Weiying trembled violently as well, only barely regaining control after several breaths. Han Li's brow furrowed deeply, shock flooding his heart. That strange scream had not targeted spiritual sense. It directly assaulted the qi and blood within the body itself. No matter how powerful his spiritual perception was, it offered no defense against such an attack. He had never expected the purple-lined scorpions to possess such a terrifying innate ability. Clearly, even the ancient records had failed to capture the full extent of their danger. As Han Li was still processing this realization, he suddenly saw more than 10 purple-black streaks burst forth from the mountainside, tearing through the air as they chased after the 8 puppets. His expression tightened. Without hesitation, he immediately commanded the puppets to flee at full speed. The enormous apes exploded forward, ripping through the sky as streaks of blinding white light. Though it lasted only an instant, Han Li managed to catch a glimpse of the pursuing creatures. Each scorpion possessed a massive body, nearly 3 meters long, a pair of translucent wings, and a glossy purple-black carapace that gleamed with an ominous sheen. Aside from their monstrous size and wings, they looked identical to ordinary scorpions. At the head of the swarm was a particularly enormous one, twice the size of the others, clearly their leader. Yellow mist continuously seeped from its mouth, forming a chilling trail in the air. Han Li's gaze lingered on it for a moment longer than intended. The 8 puppets were clearly slower than the scorpions, but they had gained a crucial head start. For the time being, they successfully drew the purple-lined scorpions away, gradually shrinking into black dots on the distant horizon. Han Li suddenly shouted, "Go! Some of the puppets have already been caught in restrictions. They'll be overtaken soon." The moment his words fell, Han Li stopped concealing himself and shot forward like a meteor. Marquis Nanlong and Lu Weiying reacted instantly, following close behind as they charged toward the mountain peak. All 3 understood clearly if they failed to cross the mountain at this very moment, the terrifying speed of the purple-lined scorpions would make escape nearly impossible. Fortunately, none of them were slow. Even without activating the thunderstorm wings, Han Li's deeper cultivation allowed him to traverse the distance in the blink of an eye. As they rushed forward, Han Li suddenly felt the connections to his 8 puppets sever one after another. His heart sank. Without slowing, he streaked past the scorpion's nest, not daring to look back. Only after the 3 cultivators reached the opposite side of the mountain did they finally breathe a sigh of relief. Marquis Nanlong broke into a smile. "Fortunately, thanks to Brother Han's jadedove poison and his puppets, we were able to pass this trial. Otherwise, it would have been exceedingly troublesome." Han Li glanced at him and replied calmly, "It was nothing. We were simply fortunate." He intentionally glossed over the matter, fully aware that the jaded dove poison was originally something Master Kang Kun had left behind. Lu Weiying also offered several words of praise, marveling at how easily Han Li had resolved the crisis. Han Li merely smiled faintly, responding with a few modest remarks before the group continued onward. They traveled for another half-day without incident until the temperature in the air gradually began to rise. The surrounding mountain ridges turned increasingly lush and green, forming a stark contrast to the barren terrain they had passed through earlier. Before long, even the mountain rocks themselves began to glow with a fiery red hue. Several nearby peaks were riddled with fissures filled with molten lava, exhaling scorching air and grey ash, as if the land itself had become a blazing prison. Han Li and Lu Weiying both revealed looks of surprise at the sight. Marquis Nanlong, however, remained calm. He knew they had not strayed from the correct path. Soon afterward, the three arrived before a colossal crimson mountain, towering more than 10 kilometers into the sky. Most of its surface was shrouded in glowing red clouds, while countless smaller peaks surrounded it, making the mountain appear overwhelmingly dominant. The moment Marquis Nanlong saw it, he halted in mid-air, the light surrounding his body dissipating. Han Li and Lu Weiying exchanged glances, excitement flashing through their eyes. They had arrived. Marquis Nanlong let out a long breath and turned to them. "Fellow Taoists, beneath this mountain lies a cavern, the nest of the ancient flame toad, as well as the resting place of an ancient cultivator's remains. The beast is said to be extremely powerful. We should discuss how to deal with it." Beneath the mountain, Han Li raised an eyebrow and immediately spread out his spiritual sense. As expected, he detected an enormous fire-red cavern deep within the mountain, from which waves of scorching wind periodically surged forth. Fearing that further probing might alert the flame toad, he quickly withdrew his spiritual sense. Lu Weiying spoke eagerly. "What is there to discuss? Fellow Taoist Han can take the lead with his ice attribute techniques while we support him in slaying the beast." Marquis Nanlong shook his head. "Brother Lu, it's not so simple. According to Kang Kun's records, the ancient flame toad's nest is half submerged in lava. Once injured, the beast can retreat into the molten depths and rapidly recover. Moreover, we would be at a severe disadvantage in such an environment. The best approach is to lay down a spell formation and lure it out of its nest. I've prepared an ice attribute formation specifically for this purpose." Lu Weiying offered no objections after hearing this, and Han Li also found the plan reasonable. With their course of action decided, the three began their preparations. In addition to Marquis Nanlong's formation, Han Li discreetly set up several of his own spell formations to guard against unforeseen dangers. Once everything was ready, the cultivators concealed themselves and waited for Han Li to lure the ancient flame toad from its lair. Han Li slapped his storage pouch and retrieved his remaining white wolf puppet. After taking a seat near the edge of the formation, he calmly sent the puppet into the depths of the mountain cave. Controlling the puppet with a thin strand of spiritual sense, Han Li could clearly perceive every detail within the cave. Ahead of the white wolf puppet stretched a naturally formed tunnel roughly 30 meters long. Its stone walls were mottled black and red, riddled with cracks from which thin threads of flame continuously seeped out, warping the surrounding air with intense heat. Han Li was certain that if an ordinary cultivator were to enter this passage, they would be unable to withstand the scorching temperature and would soon lose consciousness. Fortunately, the white wolf was a mechanical puppet. Such dangers did not apply to it. Not long after, it emerged into an underground world bathed entirely in crimson light. The cavern spanned nearly a kilometer in width, yet most of it was submerged beneath a churning lake of molten lava. The splashing, boiling sounds echoed ceaselessly, instilling an instinctive fear of being burned alive. Encircling the lava lake was glowing scarlet ground, dotted with sparse patches of greenery. The sight surprised Han Li slightly. It was immediately apparent that these were rare spirit grasses capable of surviving such extreme conditions. However, the white wolf puppet showed no interest in them. Its attention fixed instead on a massive protrusion rising from the lava. The monster lay sprawled on its back, sleeping soundly, its thunderous breathing echoing through the cavern. Its body was nearly 10 meters wide and close to 20 meters long. Coupled with its blazing fire-red coloration, it radiated an oppressive, extraordinary aura. Each time it exhaled, clouds of red mist billowed around its massive form. This must be the ancient flame toad. Han Li carefully examined the beast for a long while before shifting his attention toward a stone platform jutting out from the lava lake. The platform was clearly ancient, though its surface was carved with intricate decorative patterns and talismanic characters. The four corners had long since eroded. At its center lay the remains of a cultivator clad in green robes, sprawled haphazardly as if death had come suddenly. The robes were simple, yet peculiar in style at a glance. One could tell they did not belong to any modern cultivation era. Despite the countless years that had passed, the garment remained pristine, faintly glowing with a gentle green light. The body within had long since decayed, leaving behind only translucent bones as clear as crystal. After closely inspecting the remains, Han Li briefly glanced back at the ancient flame toad before withdrawing his strand of spiritual sense from the puppet. He then sent that same strand stealthily toward the stone platform. His intention was to first determine whether the corpse still possessed any treasures. At a glance, he discovered neither magic treasures nor a storage pouch, which caused his heart to sink slightly. However, it was possible that the items were concealed nearby, or perhaps hidden within the green robes themselves. The strand of spiritual sense hovered above the remains and slowly descended. At that instant, a sudden change occurred. The green robes flared brilliantly, releasing a barrier of emerald light that forcefully repelled the invading spiritual sense. At the same time, a strange fluctuation of spiritual qi rippled outward. The sleeping ancient flame toad seemed to sense this disturbance. Its eyes snapped open as it scanned the cavern, quickly locking onto the white wolf puppet standing near the cave entrance. Not good, Han Li exclaimed inwardly. The strand of spiritual sense immediately snapped back to the wolf puppet, which spun around and fled in a streak of white light. Almost simultaneously, the round-bodied flame toad flipped over and leapt into the air, landing heavily atop a massive rock. It let out a furious croak, then lunged forward, shrouded in rolling red mist as it gave chase. The ancient flame toad is coming. Be on guard. Hidden near the spell formation, Han Li moved his lips slightly, transmitting his voice to his companions. Both Marquis Nanlong and Lu Wei-ying stiffened their gazes, snapping toward the distant mountain. A white streak burst from within the cave, flying straight toward their position. A heartbeat later, a sphere of red mist followed closely behind, its speed rivaling that of an early nascent soul cultivator. Han Li's expression shifted. Fortunately, the white wolf puppet specialized in speed, otherwise it might never have succeeded in drawing the beast out. With that in mind, Han Li commanded the puppet to push itself to the absolute limit, disregarding its own structural integrity. At the same time, he flipped his hand, summoning a ball of blue flame into his palm. Seeing this, Marquis Nanlong and Lu Wei-ying adopted grave expressions as they silently prepared their magic treasures beside the edge spell formations. Though the distance between the mountain and the cultivators seemed vast, the white streak and the red mist crossed it in the blink of an eye. Han Li's expression hardened as the blue flame in his palm roiled, violently swelling in size. Yet just as the white streak was about to enter the spell formation, the flame toad grew impatient. It let out a deafening croak and spat out a scarlet fireball from over 100 meters away. When the fireball first emerged, it was no larger than a human head. But after traveling only 10 meters, it suddenly expanded into a gigantic inferno, engulfing the white wolf puppet in a violent storm of flames. A dull explosion rang out from within the fire. The flames surged forward with terrifying speed, leaving not even a trace of the puppet behind. Han Li's heart trembled at the sight. The toad's demonic flames were at least an entire realm stronger than an ordinary nascent flame. Doubt flickered through his mind as to whether his celestial ice flames alone could suppress it, but he did not panic. He still possessed two far more fearsome methods, the purple apex flames and the aureate sword formation. Not to mention, if he released all of his core formation-grade puppets, he could certainly slay the beast, but the cost would be enormous. Those puppets would be far more valuable in other situations. At that moment, the flame toad croaked in apparent satisfaction at having destroyed the intruder. Wrapped in red mist, it turned around, preparing to return to its lair. The three cultivators exchanged uneasy glances. Hanley in particular felt a surge of anxiety. The flame toad's core was a matter of life and death for Nangonguan. He could not allow it to escape. A ruthless glint flashed across his eyes. In a blur of azure light, Han Li shot forward alone, appearing at the edge of the spell formation. Marcus Nanlong and Lu Wei-ying were momentarily stunned, but they quickly realized his intention. Han Li's sudden appearance immediately alerted the flame toad. It turned its massive head and stared rigidly at him, remaining motionless as it examined this new enemy with a bewildered gaze. Han Li said nothing. He merely raised the ball of flame in his hand while slapping his storage pouch with the other. 6 balls of blue light dropped behind him, revealing themselves as towering blue tortoise puppets, each standing over 10 meters tall. Under Han Li's mental command, icy chi began to radiate from their shells. In moments, foot-long icicles condensed densely across their backs, transforming their previously meek appearance into something profoundly intimidating. Sensing Han Li's hostility, the flame toad's eyes gleamed coldly. With a single breath, it expelled another massive fireball. As the fireball expanded and hurtled toward him with overwhelming force, Han Li remained calm. He raised the hand, holding the celestial ice flames, intending to test the might of the beast's demonic fire. A single ember of blue ice drifted forward. By then, the flame toad's fireball had already expanded to nearly 20 meters in diameter, while the ember of ice was no more than a few inches long. At first glance, the two seemed utterly incomparable. Yet upon contact, an astonishing transformation occurred. Blue light erupted as dense ice instantly spread across the fireball, encasing it in frost. In the next instant, the inferno was frozen into a massive sphere of ice, with scarlet flames flickering weakly at its core. Han Li was visibly shaken. Seeing its attack restrained the ancient flame, Toad flew into a rage. It threw open its mouth and unleashed hundreds of fist-sized fireballs in a torrential barrage. Han Li pursed his lips and waved his hands. The 6 tortoise puppets simultaneously shook their shells, launching countless icicles skyward to intercept the oncoming flames. Explosions thundered through the air. Shattered icicles burst into freezing mist, while fireballs detonated into surging waves of flame, filling the battlefield with roiling white chi. Han Li narrowed his eyes quickly, discerning that the fireballs were far stronger than the icicles. Moments later, the sea of flames began to overwhelm the icy mist. Seeing this, Han Li muttered softly and suddenly retreated in a blur. The 6 tortoise puppets withdrew with him. The advancing flames surged forward unimpeded, yet just then the tortoise puppets unleashed another volley of icicles, forming a fresh glacial mist that stalled the inferno once more. Han Li stared intently at the ancient flame toad, which now stood motionless with its mouth closed. According to the information he had gathered about Devil Fall Valley, the ancient flame toad could rapidly recover by drawing strength from lava. Moreover, with its mastery over fire movement techniques, it could traverse more than 3 kilometers in an instant by riding streams of flame. With the mountain's interior submerged in molten lava, escape would be effortless once it retreated underground. Marcus Nanlong and Lu Wei-ying were unconcerned by this possibility. Their objective was the ancient cultivator's treasures. Slaying the beast was secondary. Even if the toad escaped, their goal could still be achieved. But for Han Li, this was unacceptable. The flame toad's core was indispensable to Nangonguan. Once the beast entered the spell formation and was cut off from escape, he could attack without restraint. Preventing its escape was absolutely crucial. When the ancient flame toad saw Han Li retreat, after only a brief exchange, confusion flickered through its eyes. Lacking intelligence, it surged forward without hesitation, vigorously pursuing him. Han Li was secretly delighted. After traveling a short distance, the flame toad suddenly found itself enveloped in a faint blue barrier. White lights flashed as several ice dragons erupted from the barrier, coiling tightly around it and plunging the area into freezing cold. Startled, the flame toad halted, instinctively croaking menacingly as it scanned its surroundings. At that same moment, light flared on both sides of the barrier as Marquis Nanlong and Lu Weiying appeared simultaneously. Seeing the beast trapped, they unleashed their attacks without restraint. Marquis Nanlong flung his jade ring forward, while Lu Weiying released twin blue halberds that spiraled toward the flame toad. The spell formation offered no obstruction, their treasures pierced straight through the icy barrier. The ice dragons surged forward, fangs bared, attacking in unison. From a distance, Han Li seized the moment. He activated a formation flag in his hand, adding supplementary restrictions that synchronized perfectly with his companion's assault. Realizing its dire situation, the flame toad let out an earth-shaking howl. Its massive body suddenly shrank before violently expanding once more, activating its life-saving ability. In an instant, foot-long shields of scarlet light formed across its body, stacking together to create 3 layers of blazing defensive barriers. At the same moment, the Jade Ring ice dragons and twin halberds struck the fiery shields. The spell formation trembled violently as multicolored lights collided in a blinding explosion. But as the flame toad roared again, a beam of scarlet light nearly a meter thick shot from its mouth, striking the side of the icy barrier. The barrier groaned under the assault. Then, in only a heartbeat, a massive hole was melted clean through. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.